Hey everyone, and welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. I've got here an amazing guest for you guys. Her name is Charmaine Leath. She is a hospital financial counselor, which is new for me, something I'd never heard of. So we were talking a little bit about that beforehand. But basically, Charmaine is someone who, very much like me, has kids, has a spouse, loves the outdoors, loves getting people out and just sharing their experiences along with all of your family. You love getting your kids out there too. You don't look at them as a burden. And that's something that stuck out to me and why I wanted to get you on the podcast, because there's a lot of people that do look at their kids as a burden, and yet you're excelling in getting your message out there. So we kind of want to dive into that a little bit. But first and foremost, Charmaine, who are you in a nutshell for the audience?
So I am Charmaine Leath. I am based out of Southwest Colorado. I have two girls. One is almost 4 and the other one's 9. I am married. I work in the hospital, as he said, and I've really dove into the outdoor industry in the last year. And really, we just live our entire lives in the outdoors, something that we love.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's something that is, it's a big deal because, I know COVID kind of kicked a lot of things off for people working from home and wanting to get outside. Everyone got that cabin fever, but year round in a way. And so, it's a big deal for people. And then a big reason why I started RedBeard Outdoors was because I had people telling me how interesting it was that I could get my kids that were my youngest kids at the time were infants, and so infant and toddler. And so they were like, how do you get outdoors with them? Like, how do you get them out there without them screaming their heads off, or, not being able to really go on a hike because the 2-year-old doesn't want to walk or whatever it is. And that's really something that kind of sparked my interest in sharing things. It was about 5 years ago or so. So for you, I guess, why is it such a big deal for you to share your passion for the outdoors with your family and with your kids?
So, yeah, like you said, kids aren't a burden in the outdoors. It's like you got to teach them how to live that way also. And so it's just really important for me to get children and women out in the outdoors in general. But it wasn't like, I need to find a babysitter to take while I go hunting or fishing or whatever. It's like, they're just going to go, we're going to make it work, and we're going to do all the things so that they can come with us. So we really learned like, what all you have to take. And you probably have to pack them in and out, which I have several stories like that with the 2-year-old. Um, in this day and age, and especially with COVID, I feel like more people are getting outdoors. And in the industry, I've learned that a lot of people are taking their children on their outdoor adventures. And it's really the next generation of outdoorsmen and women. So taking them out is just as important than us going out there as well.
Exactly. And the fact that they can go out there and they can see what mom and dad are able to do. And then of course you can also talk to them about, because I've had the conversation with especially my daughter, who loves to have morning snuggles before she gets up and is always wondering why dad or mom is gone in the morning, and why we go so early. And I just talked to her about that while we're on the trail, and I am carrying her after a mile or two of hiking. Her little legs get tired, and
Yeah.
so whenever I pick her up, I'm like, this is why I go to the gym, so I can carry you and we can still go have these adventures. And so it's definitely key to be able to kind of lead from the front, lead by example, with your kids, so that you're not just constantly leaving and they're almost becoming. I've heard stories of people getting upset with the idea of the outdoors because it takes their parents away, or it
Yeah.
takes a loved one away from them because they're gone during that time rather than bringing them. Because there are a lot of things, like you said, you kind of have to pack differently. You can't pack nearly as light as you want to when you go by yourself. When you bring your kids, there's always extra snacks. You're bringing their water. You've got to have the ability to carry them. So maybe you've got a pack that you can carry them in, or just get ready to put them on your shoulders, whatever it may be. But you have to pack differently. So where did it all start for you? I guess let's go back to the beginning. When did you start really diving into the outdoors? I know you said the industry of the last year, but before that, obviously, you gathered a love for the outdoors. Where did that come from?
So, I grew up in the outdoors with my dad. So we grew up in the middle of pretty much nowhere in an oil field town in New Mexico. And so all we did were things outdoors. We had horses. My dad would hunt and fish. We'd camp and all of the things. Really, that's the only thing I remember about my childhood for some reason. But one of my first memories, and it gets me excited every time I talk about it, is I want to say I was like 4-ish. My dad had shot a buck on a private piece of property. Her name was Little Miss Old Sally. Okay. So old school house, white, picket fence, but just beautiful property in New Mexico. And he had shot a buck and took me with him. And we had tracked this buck. And I remember vividly just the blood on the little fall leaves and just tracking this deer as the sun set in the New Mexico. And that really what sparked like the rest of my life in the outdoors, honestly. And it just really grew into like a love. So I continued to hunt and fish. After high school, I kind of lived all over the country. And then I would always come home to spend time hunting and fishing with my dad. And, you know, when I came back and settled down in Colorado is really when I really took off like hunting and fishing. And my life just revolved all around it. And I take my kids on, they've been on almost every single adventure. And it's just like a life full of lessons and learning. And I learned that stuff as a kid and how cool that memory was. And I hope that my kids grow up like with that one memory that sparked their joy for the outdoors. And hopefully they love it as much as I do.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool that you had that same experience with your own dad. You know, that's what you remember of your childhood was getting outside. You know, that's awesome that he went about doing that. And he obviously wasn't doing it for anything other than the fact that he wanted to share that with you.
Yeah.
Like there was no industry behind it. And that's why I was saying I've looked at your stuff, and even before you got into the industry and started working with certain companies, you were traveling, you were doing the things that you're doing now. So it didn't change you when you start working with companies. And that's something that I really admire about people when they get into the quote unquote industry, which is kind of becoming one of those terms. It's like almost cringy, kind of like an influencer kind of deal. It's like, I don't really like that word, but I guess,
No.
if you influence people to do the right things, it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that, you were doing this all before that, that's a big deal. Your kids are definitely going to remember that. I know just another good example is summer break right now. And so, I noticed while we were traveling, our kids get a lot of screen time when we're traveling, so they're not fighting, right? So we've got our family iPads that they get so they can listen to their shows or do whatever. But the moment we get somewhere, it's you cut it off. We're leaving them in the car and we're going. So we get back from this recent trip, and they had gotten a lot of time because it was long drives. And so the first thing my son did when he woke up the morning after we got back was he wanted breakfast. Of course, we made him breakfast, and then he asked for the iPad. And I looked at him. I was like, nope, we're not doing screens today. He was like, what? Like, just shocked. And I was like, no, we're not doing screens. It's summer break. Go find something to do. And he was like, well, what do you want me to do? I said, I'm not entertaining you. You've got enough toys and you've got a backyard and you've got friends that live next door. Figure it out.
Yeah.
And he's 8. And so I was just kind of like, I'm going to go to work. I got to get things caught up on. And you go out. And next thing I know, he's running around without a shirt, skating up and down the sidewalk. Like, so we had to talk about sunscreen a little bit there, but you kind of have to have that battle sometimes.
Yeah.
Where the kids maybe don't want to go on the hike because they know that the hike means their legs are going to get tired or it's hot or whatever. How do you handle those battles, you personally, with your kids when they do happen? Because they do happen. And I think that's another thing that keeps parents from taking kids to the outdoors is having to overcome that hump of the kids. I know the kids are going to fight me. I don't want to deal with it today. I'm just going to stay at home. How do you overcome that?
So like you, the movies get turned off when you're out of the car. So yeah, we may drive a little ways to wherever we're going outdoors, but they do know and they understand that that's it. But you know what? We've spent so much time in the outdoors their whole life, and I've taught them things like quiet feet and learning how to talk outdoors, and we're not screaming and yelling depending on where we are. That's just, they learn how to act out there, I guess, over time. And so I don't, our challenges come and go, but they've learned so much outdoors that they've learned how to act. I mean, they've spent their whole life out there. You know what I mean? And like we had talked before, just being like prepared for, well, I'm hungry, or I need some water, or I'm tired of walking. You know, it comes with it. It just comes with being a parent in general. You go to the park, they're gonna want all the same stuff,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, and that's the other thing too is I've learned to. It's hard to say that, but it's hard to change the words up. But sometimes when my kids hear hike, that's what they think
Oh
is,
yeah.
oh man, we're walking. That's kind of a buzzword that you maybe not want to use.
Yeah.
But go on an adventure. Let's go
Yes.
explore something, and then also understand as a parent, you're not necessarily going to get in that 5 to 10 mile hike that you want to get
Yeah.
in, or maybe you're not going to get to the vantage point where you want to go glass or things like that. When you bring your kids, just get that in your own. And that's a battle for parents as well. Get it through your own thick skull that's not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
Like
No,
it's just
it's
not with an 8-year-old, not with a 6-year-old with their tiny legs. They're going to get tired and you're just going to take a lot longer to go a shorter distance. And
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But it's just find other ways to have challenges, even for yourself, that you can do. So a challenge could be, again, carrying more weight a shorter distance because you've got that 40 to 60 pound kid on your shoulders, plus all their extra snacks and water. I've found ways for myself as well to look at it as a way to still train, even though I'm not going as far as of a distance as maybe I want to go. But what are some ways that you've, like, it's good that you've put those, I guess, investments in more frequently throughout their younger years. But even then, what are some maybe games or
Yeah.
ways that you've taught them, like you were saying, quiet feet, or whatever it is that you've taught your kids? What are some games maybe that parents could pick up on and use?
I was going to say that there are like incentives, and we try to make it fun and exciting. Like if we go shed hunting, we're going to be hiking and all of that. It's like, okay, so who can find the first shed? And there'll be some form of like excitement or treat, or or who can find the most or the biggest, and you get to choose what movie we see this week or something like that. Then they get excited about being out there. And Brinley, the little one, was really excited to find her first shed. So,
Mm.
you got to make it feel exciting. Like, we're excited to be out there. And the only way that they're going to love it is with stuff like that, I feel like, too. And same thing with hunting and fishing. It's like, there's some form of incentive. Brinley loves fishing, period. Like, she'll hold the dang fish all day. Okay. But so you don't have to talk her into that one, really. But for, hunting or shed hunting, hiking, nobody likes that word, but there's games. Yeah. Whoever finds the first one, whoever has the biggest one, if we can walk all this way, there's this at the end of it, or this meat is filling our freezer for us to eat for the next 6 months, and stuff like that. And it just makes them feel more involved, really. It's all making them feel like they're just as important in it as we are.
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a little bit of bribery involved sometimes as well.
Yes, they're
We,
little.
yeah, exactly. We did a color run, what was it, Saturday? And that's a lot of fun, but 3+ miles is rough on a little 8-year-old when you're kind of in the open sun. And
Yeah.
and so I knew we were going to be going at his pace, so I threw my rucker on and I was rucking with him, and he would slow down and stop and complain. And so we made it a game that every was it every quarter mile or every half mile he got 2 starburst, right? So he had a pocket full of starburst that he could have, and then at whatever distance we had set, and so we were trying to find ways to keep his morale boosted. Whereas our 6-year-old, she had her 2 older siblings and they were kind of wanting to jog it, so she actually kept up with them. There's also those differences where each child is different, and you have to be able to pinpoint, like, okay, this one's going to need more attention in this situation, and maybe today this daughter or son needs more attention. It happens, right? You just have to be prepared for it. You have to go into it knowing, again, you're not going to be able to go hike 4 ridges over, to be able to glass the spot that you want to glass. You just need to encourage them and find something fun to do. I know in the winter as well, I always have a pair of binoculars in the truck when we're going up on the mountains. And so I'll pull over sometimes and we'll just spot animals.
Yeah.
I'll teach them to spot what you're looking for. And the kids laugh because you're like, well, you got to look for the white butts on deer. And they're like, oh, why are you looking at their butt? But you make it fun
Yeah.
and teach them kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And they have so much fun,
Yeah.
so that I agree with you there. The games are fun. The bribing is fun. It's you just make it into a game for yourself as well.
But then they get excited about like the tools of it too, like you said, the binoculars. Brinley's like, how does this work? How do I look out through there and stuff like that? So you're also teaching them at the same time, and then they get excited that they know how to do it in the future too. Like, hey, can I look through those and check out those elk or whatever? So it's all part of it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Or when you get to camp, who gets to light the fire and who's, instead of it being, I don't know, like bribe them to go gather firewood even. Like there's so many different things that you can do to get the kids involved. But again, you have to be prepared for it, and definitely don't underpack when it comes to bringing your kids. I would definitely recommend keeping it as comfortable as possible when you take your kids out. I had a really funny conversation with one of the guys at Initial Ascent, Joe, one of the owners, and he was saying that his first time backpacking when he came out west from Kansas, he went up with an REI backpack, the Coleman sleeping bags, cotton clothing, canned food. Like he was like, I was like 80 pounds in with me and my son, and then it rained. And so we were soaking wet in our sleeping bags. Like,
oh my gosh, like, that's how you learn, experience. That's how you learn.
Exactly. Well, and I joke, I'm like, oh, now I understand why you created the backpack that you created, because
there you go. Yeah.
You wanted to carry all the heavy stuff. Yeah.
That one fail.
But no,
seriously.
Exactly. It'll take over for sure. And it's a good memory though. He's definitely never forgotten that one.
No.
So with that being said, what are some, I guess your kids aren't quite old enough to hunt out here out west. I know out east, they have a lot younger ages to be able to sit in a blind and hunt deer, etc. Do you have, are both of your kids interested in hunting, or is it something that is, they're learning to be interested in? How's that direction going?
I would say the little one, my 4-year-old, is definitely more interested in it. She's a little not so girly. She's got a girly side, but she is also like a tomboy. So the older one, though, is learning to love it. And, she's my stepdaughter, and she lives in 2 different homes. So it's like this home is very different from this home. So she didn't exactly grow up her whole life like that. So she's learning, and she's not with us as much as the little one, but they still both have been on several hunts. They still go, like when I take Brinley or the girls, I shoot more with my bow and teaching them how to like turkey call and stuff like that. And then when when I'm rifle hunting, I typically don't take them a whole lot unless we're road hunting, and then I got to get out and walk 50 feet off of the road. You know what I mean? But yeah, the little one definitely loves the outdoors a little bit more than the older.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point too with rifle hunting and archery hunting. I'm trying to remember the people that I've spoken with about it. I know Cameron Haynes brings it up, but there was some other conversation that I had just talking about how archery, it keeps you in the moment. Like there's this loud bang that comes with a rifle, even if you have a suppressor, and you're able to hunt suppressed without earmuffs and stuff. There's something different about archery where there's not this explosion that takes you out of the moment.
Yes.
Especially and I haven't gotten into recurves yet. I will eventually, but there's something magical about watching the flight of the arrow, watching it go through an animal, and being present through that whole experience, rather than seeing it through a scope where that gets rebounded whenever the kickback happens, and then that loud explosion, etc. Being closer to the animal. It's something that kids can do from a very young age and get instant gratification when they hit the target at 10 yards. Archery is a big deal. So for for you and your girls, do they shoot a bow yet, or is that something that you're working them up to?
We have bows, and we are working towards that, and we're starting to learn how to do it. For the longest time, they weren't able to pull it back, even the smallest bows that we could find. But they're learning. They're in the process of learning. And I would have to agree that rifle and gun hunting does take away from the experience a ton. And it's almost like you forget or you don't know what exactly happened when you hunt with a gun. And same for kids. Like if they're there, they're more shocked from the gun than watching the whole experience come about. And I've never heard it that way actually until just now. And it's actually eye-opening that you're totally right. That like you're just there for it and you see more of it. I don't know. It's a different experience. But the girls are learning bow hunting. I feel more comfortable teaching my children bow hunting as well. Yeah. And it's more exciting. It's like a playful game. Like, let's go shoot our bows. Yeah. More involvement for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And something else too, just for, while we're on the topic of, coaching our kids through archery, that we learned with my youngest is I got them both these little, they're hanging up over here, but the little bear apprentices. So they're not really compound bows yet. But they're the little $50, $60 bow that you can get off of Amazon or wherever. They come with the little fiberglass arrows, just something to get them started. Learning how to anchor, watching the flight of the arrow, stuff like that. And then our youngest, she was shooting and she kept missing to the, I'm trying to remember if it was to the right. Either way, it was to the right or left consistently. And I'd sit there and I'd watch her and I would push the limbs of the bow to get her on target because she was like aiming off to that side. And I was like, what is going on? And one of the coaches at the archery range, she looked at her and she's like, is she left-handed? I said, well, she's kind of ambidextrous, but mainly right-handed. She's like, well, she's definitely left-eye dominant.
Oh.
And I was like,
man.
So we got her a bow. They make these little, I think it's called the Bear Spark, where it shoots through the middle of the riser. So it's technically ambidextrous. And so we got her that and she started nailing the target like it was nothing and had her shooting left-handed. And she was like right on. I didn't have to move the bow at all. Like she was on it. And she got so excited. She was getting frustrated because she kept missing the target. And then all of a sudden she's hitting it and she's so excited about it. So that's just something too I try and bring up whenever I talk to parents. Just because your kid's right-handed, pay attention to what eyes they're using and not necessarily where they're hitting on the target yet, so that you can get them trained up in the right direction so they can start young. Because I know a couple of adults that were told they're left-eye dominant after shooting a right-handed bow for 10 plus years. And now they're having to relearn the whole process as an adult. And so, it's just one of those things when you're shooting a rifle, shooting a pistol or shooting a bow, just pay attention to what eye your kids are using. So you can help them as well. That's just a little something I've learned recently.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. But, okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's your favorite time of year. Let's start with that. Do you like spring, fall, winter, summer? What's your favorite time of year personally and then with your family?
Oh, that's hard. Well, it is because Colorado winters are so long. They feel so long anyway. So, it is so nice when it's, man, that's a hard question. I'm just going to say summer though. And it really is because the start of summer in May is still turkey season. So it's I still get to hunt. I still get to fish. Mm-hmm. And then we also have a boat that we go to the lake on. Camping is coming and maybe the start of summer is probably my favorite time of the year. But on the flip side though, I really look forward to the fall leaves. And to me, that's my favorite season of hunting is coming. So we spend probably 2 weeks in hunting elk and then the scouting before that. That's, The family, I would 1000% say the summer because we camp a ton. We go out on the lake, on the boat, and that's just their jam. So.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, I agree with you on that. And that's why I asked the two separate because I spend a lot more time kind of away from the family during the fall. And then during, family time, all the camping, hiking trips, etc., definitely start in about
Yeah.
May. Utah's the same way, especially this year. It was pretty crazy. We were getting heavy snows all the way through April. But yeah, May through August timeframe is great for the kids. I'm not a huge fan of heat. Um, I just don't like it. I usually start sweating at anything over 70 degrees, even with a breeze. And so for me, it gets I've learned to embrace that. But at the same time, the kids just absolutely love it. And this year has been probably the most green year that I've seen in
Oh, for
Utah.
sure.
Um, yeah, I've come from North Carolina, and where it's green I mean, you plant whatever seed you want in, March, it's going to be a thriving whatever in May. And in North Carolina, whereas here in Utah, you actually have to water your garden. You have to make sure it's not getting too much sun or not too lit. Like it's very picky. And so I've had to learn that over the almost decade that I've been here. And, this year I've been really impressed with the coloration that's come out. The wildflowers are going crazy, and it's been a lot more shade as well when we go out on a hike. The trees are thriving. Animals seem to be recovering from this long winter, and it seems to be doing really well. So I agree with you there. Colorado and Utah definitely have some long winters
Yes,
for sure.
definitely they do.
So with your hunting 2 weeks plus scouting of elk, is elk your favorite animal to go after, or do you have another one?
Yeah, I really do love elk. I mean, just elk in general. Like whether it's season or not, if I see them on the side of the road, I'm stopping or I'm looking. They're a cool animal. I don't know what it is. It's a vibe, it's a feeling. But yeah. And like I
Mm-hmm.
prepare almost all year for that season. So I'm in the gym 5 or 6 days a week. I am hiking. I am training myself with elevation. And then up to that is like the cams, the the getting the camper ready, making sure we have enough water, and the scouting. So it's like more than
Mm-hmm.
just the hunting and the hunting season itself once it starts. There's like a whole lead up to get to that. And I don't really do that for any other animal. Only elk. I do
Yeah.
some with deer, but you know what? Like, and I tell people this all the time. Like, I'm not a trophy hunter, guys. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we fill the freezer in our family. So if there is a legal bull that on day 5, like I'm probably gonna harvest that bull because I may not get another shot.
Mm-hmm.
But elk season's my favorite. But I also really love grouse. Ever had grouse before?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the best mountain chicken I've ever eaten,
Mm-hmm.
and I look forward
I
to that.
you know my this last year, poor grouse. Like I got so frustrated a couple times. There was some stalks that I was on for
Oh
elk,
yes.
and they blew, like, I blew them out. I blew the elk out. Whatever I screwed up, did wrong. And on my way out to the truck, it was like last light. I had about 2 miles to get back to the truck, so I start working my way back, and these grouse, just happened to come across grouse in those moments. And arrows knocked from my stalk in on this elk. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't care how expensive this arrow is, that bird is going down. And so,
Yes.
and that I got a couple of them this last year. And after a couple days of dry food, or dehydrated food, and then you get those. So I made my favorite cocktail. There was, what was it? Rice noodles and just some grilled up or whatever in the little jet boil that I have. Just put the breast of the sage grouse mixed with those noodles.
Oh,
Man, that was the best meal I had
dang.
in weeks at that point. Yeah.
They are good. I don't think people
But, oh
understand
yeah.
how delicious they actually are. I
Mm-mm. And they're a pretty
They
bird.
really are, but they're also not very intelligent. And I have lost track of how many
Mm-hmm.
times they actually scare me in the wilderness, like fly up right in front of you,
Yeah.
or they just walk in front of you like no big deal, or on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I hate to say it, but they're probably one of my favorite wild game animals. They're so good. I don't know what it is. Just they're good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they are. They are. They're so good. And my kids too, they like to the first time I brought home a turkey and we were cleaning it and I nicked the gizzard or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, what's that green stuff in there?" So I pulled it out, dumped it on the tarp and let them see. And it was cool to kind of have that lesson too of this is what they eat, this is how they process their food, and sage grouse are very similar. So popping that open and letting them see it was pretty cool as well. But yeah, I agreed. Sage grouse, I don't know how many times I've been, because it's usually you're hiking out at night, and so you don't see anything, right? And you're already kind of leery of anything outside of your view with your headlamp, and then you just hear this loud, it's almost like a boom, and they just like all
Oh my
fly out of the
gosh.
tree right in front of you, and you're like, what the
Yes.
heck just happened? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then this last, so I just figured out there's it's almost like a heartbeat sound when you're in the mountains. And I had heard it, and of course anytime I hear it I don't have signal, so I can't look up what it is, and then if I forget by the time I get back to where I do have signal to look it up. But this last time we were up in Idaho, and a buddy of mine and we were scouting for bears, saw everything but bear, deer, elk, whatever. And we just heard this, that it was like this boom 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 boom, and like then it would stop. And I was like, what the heck? And I was like, I've heard this before. Well, we had signal, so I looked it up. It's a ruffed
Oh.
grouse. And what they do is that's their like super low frequency call. They'll get puffed up really big and they'll flap their wings. And as they flap, it makes that thump sound. And you can hear it for, hundreds of yards. It's crazy how this small bird can make that loud of a sound. But anyway, cool fact of the day, I
Yeah,
guess.
it
I don't
is.
know if you've heard that before, but anytime you hear that sound, it seriously sounds like the heartbeat of the woods, and it just like speeds up really quick and then stops. And it's a ruffed
I'll
grouse.
have to pay attention to that next time.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So you mentioned your husband obviously goes hunting with you as well. Let's talk a little bit about
Okay.
that, because I know couples that hunt together can have issues on the mountain, but also can have really good experiences. And it's usually kind of a mixture of both. How do you guys handle hunting together as a couple?
To be totally honest, we don't hunt together very often. Um, and it's more so because we have children. So I'm going to stay in for the morning and watch the kids while you go hunt, and vice versa. We'll switch it on and off. My dad hunts a ton with us as well. And we really don't hunt the same. It's more like, I'm going to go on that ridge, you go on this ridge. Phone me or, radio me if you see something or this or that, you get something down. We do more scouting together, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have that controversy, I guess.
Well, that's usually what I hear, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, is the ones that really enjoy the hunting together is because they enjoy like coming back to camp together.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
They don't really spend those miles up in the mountains together trying to, figure out how you're going to hunt this deer or this elk or whatever. The strategies don't necessarily line up. And yeah, all of that stuff can be avoided if you're in contact with each other
Yeah.
and you go your separate ways while you're up in the mountains.
Yeah.
So I don't have that issue. My wife has chosen not to pursue hunting with me. I'm trying to get her there. We'll see. Maybe eventually. But first we got to get her shooting a bow, right?
Exactly. But you know what?
That's the first
One thing that I find really exciting, I do so most of the scouting and everything for us, because my schedule is more open and he works a little bit more than I do. So I set the cams and everything and scout most of it with my dad or with my little one, Brinley. And so it's really cool when I get out there and I get the pictures from the cam, and I'm going to set him up to go hunt this area. And I'm like, you got to see this bull that I'm going to set you up on. Or there are cows here, like cow elk. So yeah, I wouldn't say we fight about anything because we don't hunt together, but it's really exciting when I pull up those pictures and I'm like, this is where I was going to send you to hunt tomorrow, and there are animals there. And then if he gets that animal down, it's just like, it's just cool. It's just cool. Just share that with your other half.
No, that's awesome. So you're definitely the good hunting partner when it comes to scouting and all that.
Yeah, he gets out there. Cool. The cams are good. We got the pictures. The camper's set up already because I've been out there for a week scouting. The food's good. It's funny. Usually it's not like that, but for other people, But he just goes out there, everything's good for him, and he gets to go hunt. And if he harvests, we all get it together, and must be the life, huh?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I've got, there's another good friend of mine. Well, both of them are good friends of mine that they're out in Wisconsin and they hunt together. They're just about to get married. They've been dating for a while and just got engaged. And they both, it's funny because I went to their house for the first time this spring and they have all their whitetails mounted. And it's always this, well, which one do you like better? They like to ask people that because, you haven't seen. And so I pick one out. And of course, the wife's like, oh, but this one's better. And, she wants hers to be better and his to be better. And they jokingly fight about whose lease, from which family is better, kind of stuff. It's hilarious, but very similar where they take on different responsibilities and like they'll go out and kind of compete, but it's a good
Yeah,
competition
totally.
in a way. So that's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool that you go out and set those things up and respect that your husband's working a little bit more. So as far as hours wise, and so he's not able to get out. But also at the same time, you've kind of set yourself up to where you can have more flexibility to be able to get out in the mountains, take care of your family as well, and enjoy what you do. How, I guess, was that intentional? Or was that a job choice that you made? How did you go about working and finding this free time?
So honestly, it kind of started when COVID hit. I worked full time at the hospital, and then COVID hit, and they dropped like all these positions, and I landed a PRN remote position as a financial counselor. So then I could make my schedule super flexible. I had more time off, and then I'm also a photographer. So then I set up gigs doing that when my husband was home or whatever. And then I jumped into the outdoor industry. But I make it very apparent to take that time out to do all of those things. Like, I'm going to work these 2 days before I leave. I'm going to create this content before I go. So I've really built my career and what I do around the outdoors as well. Like, it was so important for me to find a position and continue to keep that position to do what we all love. Because,
Mm-hmm.
if we were both working full time, it would be really hard to get out in the outdoors like that. So I'm extremely grateful that this all worked out and landed this way, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely respect that as well. It's, having two working adults in the home isn't necessarily the easiest schedule to be able to be the best parents and be able to provide for the house. Um, the reason I ask you that is just because there's some people that they say things like, well, you're so lucky to be able to spend all this time outdoors, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, that you're lucky to be able to enjoy all this time with your family and all of these things. But in reality, they're intentional choices that one you've made, but also you've made with your spouse. You guys had this discussion, I'm sure, as far as getting things lined up financially where you guys were, and then being able to get out and do these
Yeah.
things as well. And I'm sure you had this discussion. Maybe you're just so generous that you go and set up camps for him, but I'm sure that that was a discussion as well in between you guys. You didn't just one day, hey, guess what? I set up camp for you and I found the best bull on the mountain. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't one of those just out of the blue. And that's super key in relationships. I want people to understand that as well, that it's not just you see a snapshot of these things on social media. What you don't see is the work put in behind the scenes, behind closed doors, when you guys are having those budget discussions, or you're having those time budget discussions, or your kids'
Yeah.
schedules, getting those lined up. That's all work that gets put in behind the scenes, and that's something that doesn't get highlighted enough. I've got a couple of friends that I know that talk about it pretty consistently, but I feel like it could still be talked about more.
Definitely.
The fact that you have to put that work in before you go to hunt. You can't just wake up and that's what causes a lot of arguments with spouses that don't necessarily enjoy or understand hunting. Um, when you wake up one morning, you're like, oh, it's opening day, babe. Remember we talked about this 4 months ago? I'm going.
No.
Like, that's not how that
No.
works, right? or hey, I need a new gun, or I need a new bow, or I need $1,000 worth of camo, or I
Yeah.
need this, or I need a new camper. That's what causes rifts and why people will disdain people that enjoy going outdoors so much, because of the lack of communication. I can't highlight that enough. In any relationship, communication is
Yeah.
key, and that will allow you to hunt longer. It'll allow
Yeah.
you to be able to have a happier home, as long as you've put those deposits in earlier in the year and made sure that your crap's taken care of, so that you're not leaving your family hanging while you're
Yeah,
gone.
for sure. Yep. And there's a lot of behind the scenes, like you had said as well. Like, I probably work just as much as he does, but it's just different. And on the weekends, I'm creating content or this or that. So it does equal out. We're still bringing things to the table and stuff like that. But it's funny that you say that. So I'm going to go on to I met in the outdoor industry, had told me that his first perception of me was that I was snobby. And this is our first like meeting together, like trying to partner or whatever. And I was like, well, why did I come off that way? And he was like, well, you just seemed like you came for money. You liked the outdoors, and then you had this in to get into the outdoors. Like, you have all this money or somebody that got you in there. And I try to explain to people that I literally have built myself from the bottom up. I'm not made of money. It didn't come from money. I don't know anybody in the outdoor industry. Like, that's not who I am, and that's not how I got to where I am today. So it's just, yeah, people come off differently on media, and they don't understand the background that it took to get to where people are now, or how their family dynamic works in the outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. It's something that people, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but just people need to understand that they can live the same life that they're seeing
Yes.
online, but they need to understand that behind the scenes deal. And that's why I put this flag up here from my buddy Dan from Elk Shape. He always says separation is in the preparation. What separates me from, not you necessarily, Charmaine, but you and me, right? People that enjoy the outdoors or in the outdoors a lot and have provided that opportunity for ourselves. What separates us from someone who's not, or who's making that comment of how lucky you are,
Yeah.
or wouldn't it be nice? Like, Cam Haines always says, what separates us from those people is the fact that you've put in that time behind the scenes to discuss with your spouse what's going on. You've discussed with your hunting partners what's going on. Where are you scouting? What are you doing? You've put in all that work that's not necessarily being put on YouTube or any kind of social media, because honestly, no one wants to hear about it. That's boring. It doesn't catch your eye if I post a video that's like hunting budget 101 with my wife. Like, that's,
No.
no one cares about that. Or discussions of, scheduling time with my wife. Like, no one cares about that. That's not something that's going to get, I guess, clicks or views or
Mm-mm.
whatever. But when I do have conversations with people, I like to share that point and highlight it, because it is super significant to have communication and conversations with your significant other, or even if you're a single parent or whatever, the people that are going to be taking care of your kids while you're gone, or even your loved ones in general. If you're just a single person out there, build up that need for communication so that you can communicate clearly with people in the future when you are married or whatever it may be. So I know I'm harping on it, but I think that's a huge deal, um, because people don't understand how key that is in a lot of instances.
Yeah, I completely agree. I agree with that. It's just so important. I mean, especially for families that don't hunt together, it's even more crucial, I feel like, because I see all the time, like, all my husband does all fall is hunting this and that, you know. There's a lot to it behind the scenes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Or those they're kind of funny, right? The memes that are like, "Oh, I left you alone in Bass Pro for 5 minutes and you spent $1,000," or things like that. Like, yes, there's humor behind it, but at the same time, there's behind every sarcastic joke like that, there is some kind of pain. There's something that's real about that the other person is upset about. And even, with me, I'm still not perfect. My wife and I had our budget talk a couple days ago, and I just realized, I'm like, it's been a couple months since we've actually talked about this, and it feels so much better to get it out and just say, hey, this is what I'm needing over the next couple months. Will this work? Okay, this won't work, etc. And just breaking it down on a spreadsheet and seeing what you can do. That it's just the boring work, the daily or monthly, weekly investments. It's boring, but it's necessary.
Yeah, especially in the outdoors. The gear, the time, the money,
Yep.
where you stay, it is, and it adds up for sure.
Yeah, and especially, when your spouse, like mine, doesn't eat wild game, doesn't understand that.
Yes. Yeah.
That's definitely something too. It's like she doesn't get, all she knows is that when I come back, I'm a better version of me. That's it. Like, she doesn't understand the wild game. She doesn't understand the time up in the mountains. She loves hiking, but she doesn't like necessarily going off trail. And so that's even more key to be able to communicate with her those ideas. But talking about those kind of daily investments, going back to shifting towards training a little bit, you mentioned you're in the gym 5 to 6 days a week, you're hiking, you're training. Has it always been that way for you, or is that something that you've recently picked up?
No, I have been super into fitness and nutrition my whole life. So 16 years or so since I was about 15 or 16. And that's because my dad did it. And I always liked staying fit, and it made me feel good mentally, emotionally, physically, but then when I moved home and I was hunting pretty hard with my dad, he would kick my butt in the field. Kick it. I mean, my dad is in his 60s now, and he still kills me out there and can go and go and go. And I was like, I have got to train better in the gym. And now the last few years I have. I mean, it's like wearing a vest, working certain muscles that are going to help me in the field, putting on that pack that really does suck to carry on your shoulders. And same thing for the elevation, going on hikes in the elevation where you're going to be hunting. So I have learned that it is really important to be fit, to be out there, and in safety as well. So like your body has to be able to be safe out there. And I think I've met so many hunters out in my area that come out here and the elevation kills them and they can't even hunt or hike or anything like that. So I always stress how important it is that if you do come out west, that you acclimate your body to be able to do it and to be safe out there. But to go back to it, it really just stemmed from having to keep up with my dad.
So, I mean, that's full circle, right? It just goes back to how your dad led from the front, still does. And, I mean, a lot of people look at that age and they're like, man, 60, you look at 3 different 60-year-olds and you can see how they've spent their lives. And it's not necessarily a judgment on who they are, but it's just what were their goals. And, I've been seeing a lot of things recently where it's like, was it you work all these years to retire, but then you see this picture of this couple that's retired age looking couple that has fallen asleep on a gondola ride in Italy. And it's like, you worked all these years to retire, to travel, and now you're sleeping through something that you've dreamt about for 10, 15 years or more, probably more, 40 years, for most people that don't travel until they retire. That's really sad, so even if it is that, Italy is going to be a once in a lifetime trip for you and you do that when you retire, you can put investments in, not just financially, but physically now, whatever age you are, whether that's in your 20s or your 40s, put in those daily investments, even if it is just a 45-minute walk outside. And then once that gets easy, you throw a little bit of weight as books in a backpack on your back and go for that same walk until that becomes easy. And you build that up. That's something that, again, people don't think necessarily long-term. They just go on Instagram and they see these people that are jacked and they're like, oh man, I'll never be able to accomplish that. When in reality, that shouldn't even be their goal. Your goal should be whatever your goals are, but you want to be fit enough that you can experience those goals and not fall asleep in the middle of your gondola ride that you've been dreaming about for 40 years. 60 years old, man, that's so many years of, I mean, if he started training when he was 15, like you did, that's 45 years of training that he's done. So yeah, he's probably going to kick your butt because he's got the upper edge of the fact that he's put 45 years in, whereas you've put in maybe
Yeah.
15. That's 3 times the amount that you've put in. So that's also a testament to your dad, and for people out there that, look at old age as that old age and not being able to do anything.
Yeah,
Start
I
today.
I
I
can't
mean, that's
stress it
really it.
enough that like health is wealth, y'all. Health is wealth. It really is. But
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, the health is wealth it's a catchphrase, but at the same time, it has a ton of meaning
totally.
behind it. Like, and again, anyone will sit down with you, and you'll want to hire a financial advisor that will get you through to retirement and to your deathbed, basically, make sure you're set up and your kids are set up, etc. But no one really looks at personal trainers or things like that as your financial advisors of your health.
Yeah.
Nutritionist, getting someone to set you up with that. All of those things they're key. That just like you put in every paycheck a certain amount to your retirement funds, investments, maybe if you have rental properties, whatever it is financially, why aren't you doing that every day for your health?
Yeah.
You know, from the kitchen to the gym, every time you eat. People talk about how expensive it is to eat healthy. Actually, if you break it down, it's a lot cheaper to eat healthy if you buy in bulk at Costco and you bring it home and you cook it and you meal prep. You break down the meals that way, it's a lot cheaper than it is to go out to McDonald's every single day or to go out to wherever it is that you're going to eat every single day. You know what ingredients are being put into it, and you're the one putting that investment in. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really stress that enough. It's definitely key to be able to enjoy whatever it is that your goals are. Even if you're not looking to hunt, you just want to live a longer life and not be the grandma that's on the floor in pain, not able to get up after playing with her
Yeah.
grandkids. Um, you don't want to be that. You want to be able to live a long, happy, successful life. And so, anyway, those small investments make a big deal. I think it's so cool that your dad taught you that at such a young
Yeah.
age.
Well, I've worked out my whole life, and it really is just an investment in your health and your wellness and your future. If you eat like crap your whole life, it's going to be expensive later health wise. And I don't think people just like put that together. Like health is wealth. It's really important. And they usually don't make changes until there's a reason to, like health issues, overweight, I don't feel good, etc., etc. I mean, it's really just, there's so many things. Like just do it. You're going to have a better retirement. You're going to be able to do the things you love, see your grandchildren grow. And just like my dad, the same thing. He just instilled that in us, that it is so important to keep up with your health. Um, and that's why I work out all the time and stay healthy and eat healthy and feel good. He's in his mid 60s and he can kick my butt in the outdoors still. So this says something.
That's awesome. And guys, you're hearing it here from a hospital financial counselor. It's more expensive later in life to deal with your health issues than it is up front. That's there's obviously some things that you
Yeah.
can't control, right? Maybe you were born with certain things or cancer pops up or, whatever it may be. But everything, as long as you can go into that saying, hey, I've done everything that I can to control what I can control, you're going to be able to beat certain things a lot quicker and a lot better than if you didn't take control of the controllables
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. There's always going to be things that are out of your control, but controlling the controllables in health is a huge deal. I know some people that there's a guy I recently had on, Cody DeQuisto. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's from the Mobile Hunter Roadshow. He does Lone Wolf Custom
Okay.
Gear. So he was, I mean, as fit as can be, and he got he got in a car wreck or got hit by a car, one of the two, and he broke like
Oh
3
my God.
limbs, had some issues, like some major breakage, and he was in a wheelchair, and they were telling him he was going to have, was it like at least an 8-month recovery or something like that. From the moment he could get out of his bed and was in the wheelchair, he was back in the gym. and he was only curling one arm, one arm shoulder press, things like that. But he was doing everything that he could, and he recovered in 3 months. And so that's because he had taken care of himself ahead of time, couldn't predict that accident, obviously, got in the accident and was able to recover in a shorter amount of time because he had taken care of himself ahead of that. He didn't know he was preparing for a car wreck, but it happened and he was able to recover a lot quicker. So I'm sure you see people like that all the time. The different recovery rates based on what their health was before whatever medical issue that they're dealing with.
Big time.
Again, just another testament to being as prepared as you can, putting those investments in as much as you can on a daily basis.
Absolutely. It's so important. It's so valuable. It's priceless. It's really priceless.
That's awesome. And this isn't a MasterCard commercial. Okay.
Is that what they say?
The fact that it's priceless. Oh yeah. They're like, this priceless. All right, guys. Well, with that being said, Charmaine, again, I appreciate you hopping on here, just discussing with us. There's been a lot of golden nuggets for people out there that have kids, have families, have spouses. Really appreciate your information. I love what you're putting out there. Keep it up. Definitely. People go check her out. I'm going to leave your links down below, but where can people find you?
People can find me. I just started a YouTube channel, by the way. Learning that.
Sweet.
Charmaine Leath. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I just created my new channel. So come subscribe, follow me, learn about my life, and just watch me grow in the industry doing what I love.
Awesome. And I didn't mention, this is your first podcast, isn't it?
So hopefully I did all right.
I think you did pretty good.
First one. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Of course. And guys, definitely go check out her pages. I'll leave them down below so you can check out any information that she's putting out there and her new YouTube channel. And what would be some parting words that you would leave with the audience there, Charmaine?
You know what? Health is wealth, but also to chase your dreams. I always wished and hoped that I could do what I'm doing now until one day I just stopped saying that and I jumped in both feet first and started doing what I love and put the work in to do that. So I'm in my 30s and there's always time to do things that you love and wish you could do. Just do it. You have one life to live, y'all. Do it.
Love it. I love it. That's awesome. And it's so true. Just put it out there. You were putting it out there as a wish and you put some action behind it and look where you're at just a year later. So that's amazing. All right. Well, thanks so much for hopping on here. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And guys, like I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.